Imagine checking into a hotel, expecting a warm welcome, only to be met with cold hostility instead. In today's story, a black guest arrives at a luxury hotel, dressed casually and minding his own business. But instead of hospitality, he's greeted with insults and assumptions from the manager, a man who couldn't be more dismissive or condescending. Little does the manager know, the person he's belittling isn't just another guest. He's actually the hotel's new owner. As tension builds and the manager's behavior spirals further, the truth is about to come out in a way no one saw coming. What happens next will leave you stunned and serves as a powerful reminder about judging others based on appearances. Stay tuned, because this is one story you won't want to miss. The guest had only stepped into the lobby for a few moments when the manager approached him. With a forced smile that barely masked his irritation, the manager's eyes scanned the guest from head to toe. His tone was sharp, almost dismissive, as he questioned why the man was there. The guest calmly explained he had a reservation, but his words seemed to fall on deaf ears. The manager cut him off, suggesting that maybe he was lost and should try a hotel better suited for him. Staff members glanced nervously at the exchange but said nothing. The tension in the air was palpable as the manager continued, his words dripping with condescension. The guest, however, remained calm, his expression unreadable. Who was this man that he could remain so composed under such blatant disrespect? And what would the manager say if he knew the truth? The clock was ticking for a revelation no one expected. The guest stood quietly as the manager's dismissive remarks continued, drawing attention from a few nearby guests. One of the housekeepers passing by paused for a moment, clearly uncomfortable with what she was witnessing, but hesitated to intervene. Meanwhile, the manager, seemingly emboldened by the man's silence, started pointing out policies as though to justify his behavior. He even suggested that the guest might have accidentally booked the wrong place, hinting that this wasn't a budget hotel. The guest gave a small nod, his calm demeanor unshaken, and asked to speak with someone in charge. But this only made the manager scoff, crossing his arms as he told the man he was the one in charge. "I make the decisions here," he said, leaning in as though to assert his authority. Behind the scenes, though, word was already starting to spread among the staff. Some of them recognized the man from a meeting earlier that week. Whispers of his true identity began circulating, adding a layer of quiet tension. The question wasn't if the truth would come out, it was when, and what the fallout would be. The manager's tone grew sharper, now tinged with frustration. He seemed annoyed that the guest wasn't arguing back, as if he expected some reaction. "Look," he said curtly, "I'm trying to be reasonable here, but if you don't have proper confirmation, there's nothing more I can do." He gestured dismissively toward the door. The guest remained steady, reaching into his pocket and pulling out his phone. As he scrolled calmly, the manager smirked, assuming it was an attempt to find proof of a reservation. "It's not going to change anything," he said, his voice dripping with arrogance. Meanwhile, behind the desk, a younger staff member had been silently watching the scene unfold. She seemed hesitant, but finally worked up the courage to whisper something to the manager. His confident expression faltered for just a moment as she nervously pointed at the guest's phone. But before he could respond, the guest began dialing a number, and the room fell silent. What he said next would change everything. The guest raised the phone to his ear, his calm demeanor unwavering. Everyone in the lobby seemed to hold their breath, curious about what he was doing. "Yes," he said into the phone, his tone polite but firm. "I'm at the front desk, and there seems to be some confusion. Could you come down for a moment?" The manager let out a sharp laugh, crossing his arms again. "Who exactly are you calling?" he asked mockingly. But his confidence started to waver as the guest hung up and looked him in the eye, still not saying a word. Moments later, the elevator doors opened, and a well-dressed executive stepped into the lobby. Heads turned as the figure strode toward the front desk, their expressions serious. The manager's face paled. "Sir, I wasn't expecting," he stammered, but the executive raised a hand, silencing him. They turned to the guest, addressing him respectfully by name and title. At that moment, the truth began to unravel, leaving everyone stunned. But just when it seemed the situation couldn't escalate further, the guest revealed something that no one, not even the executive, had anticipated. The executive greeted the guest warmly, shaking his hand and apologizing for the delay. The manager stood frozen, his confusion turning to panic as realization began to sink in. "I'm so sorry if there's been any misunderstanding," the executive said, glancing at the manager, whose face was now flushed. The guest finally broke his silence, his calm voice cutting through the tension. "There hasn't been a misunderstanding," he said, looking directly at the manager. "I've seen everything I needed to see." The manager tried to interject, stammering excuses about policies and procedures, but the guest raised his hand, commanding the room's attention. "For those of you who don't know," he said, "my name is Marcus, and as of last week, I am the new owner of this hotel." Gasps rippled through the staff and onlookers. The manager's confidence crumbled, but Marcus wasn't done. "This isn't just about me," he continued. "It's about creating a culture of respect for everyone, and clearly we have some changes to make." As the manager stood in stunned silence, Marcus looked at the executive and said, "I'll be conducting a full review of how we treat guests here. Let's start now." The room was still as Marcus turned back to the manager, delivering one final, unexpected twist. "You're welcome to stay, if you're willing to be retrained from the ground up. Otherwise, I think we both know it's time for you to go." The story ended not just with justice, but a powerful lesson, leaving everyone reflecting on the importance of dignity and respect. The lobby was silent as everyone processed what had just happened. The manager stood speechless, his arrogance replaced with regret. After a long pause, he mumbled something about considering his options and walked away, his head hanging low. The staff exchanged glances, some looking relieved, others contemplative, as they realized things at the hotel were about to change. Marcus turned to the remaining employees and spoke with calm authority. "This isn't about blame, it's about setting a higher standard. Together, we can make this a place where every guest feels welcome, no matter who they are." His words were met with quiet nods and even a few small smiles of encouragement. As Marcus walked toward the elevator, a young staff member stopped him. "Thank you," she said softly. Marcus smiled and replied, "It starts with us." And with that, he left the lobby, leaving behind not just a lesson but hope for a better future.